Hello, welcome to today's show. I'm Jacqueline Stockwell, CEO and founder at Leadership Through Data. I inspire and motivate information leaders across the world.
Hello, I'm really excited today to have Dr. Moya Hill. Now, she is a US veterinarian, Harvard-trained strategist, and an award-winning thought leader who views information not as a burden, but as a strategic asset. As the creator of the Unified Information Governance Model, she has pioneered a way to weave records management, Freedom of Information Act, FOIA, and privacy into a single high-impact framework. Now, her mission is simple but profound: to transform complex policies into actionable systems that build public trust and fuel innovation. She isn't just part of the conversation on information governance, she is the one advancing it. And hello and welcome, Moya.
Thank you so much for having me, Jacqueline. I'm happy to be here.
You're absolutely welcome. So it was so nice that we've kind of connected via LinkedIn. I'm a huge fan of LinkedIn and how the world is so much smaller. So you're based in the United States and I'm here in the UK. And I've reached out to you because I think some of the models, the Unified Information Governance Framework that we're going to talk about slightly later on, and the impact that you have been having with that. Now, tell me, you often say that information should be treated as an asset rather than a burden. What is the biggest mental hurdle organizations face when trying to make that shift?
That's a very good question. So I strongly believe that information should be treated as an asset rather as a burden. And I think the biggest hurdle that organizations face is mindset. The thing is, often organizations look at information as, oh, it's a checklist, checkbox, check it, but it's bigger than that. If you transform your information within your organization, I guarantee you, your whole organization will be affected and your organization will become successful. So again, the real shift happens in mindsets. Organizations right now are living in this siloed world where they don't really understand information, so they group it into different boxes. And so once they connect all the boxes, they'll realize that information is your foundation. Information is where everything flows to and flows from. And so if you really zoom in on that, your whole organization will become more successful.
Yeah, and information is gold, really, isn't it? And it's such a shame that information leaders such as ourselves don't get the right exposure to organizations to actually say, this is fundamental. This helps with growth, reputation, privacy, and return of investment as well. Now, I want you to talk to me a bit more about the Unified Information Governance Model that you've created. First of all, if you could just explain what it is for the listeners.
First of all, the Unified Information Governance Model, well, first of all, it's a model. So what it does is, we all know organizations work in silo. Privacy over there, FOIA over here. In America, we say FOIA, Freedom of Information Act, which is access to information. You have privacy over one corner, cybersecurity, risk management. They're all working in silos, doing their own thing. But the problem that organizations are having right now is when you work in silos, you have blind spots. You don't know what's going on. And so your whole organization faces issues. You have like FOIA, for example, you have backlog issues, problems, because FOIA officers don't know where the records are. They're not communicating with records officers. Then you have privacy officers, for example. They're not communicating with records officers to understand or know where records that contain personally identifiable information lives, right? And so you have these silos that occur. So what my model really is it breaks down all these silos. That's number one. Number two, it allows these organizations and these disciplines to collaborate. So from each stage of the life cycle, the basis of my model is the life cycle, the information life cycle. So from the creation of an information all the way through every single stage to disposition or destruction of that information, these disciplines collaborate. And again, it's very customizable because every organization is different, correct? So it's all based on your organizations, but disciplines the information disciplines inside your organization must collaborate in each and every stage of the information life cycle so that the information within your organization is properly governed from creation to disposition.
Nice. So you've talked about silos and you've talked about broken things. What part of the traditional system was broken that pushed you to build a new one from scratch?
Such a good question. And again, I'm going to go back to silos. I realized that working in FOIA, privacy, and records management, all three organizations. So I am the chief FOIA privacy officer for the OLC, which is an organization within the Department of Veterans Affairs. So what I realized was, while overseeing and managing these 3 separate programs, I found these gaps. And I realized that they don't communicate. They don't understand what each other does. And because of that, there are problems, severe problems. The backlog increased because in the United States, we only have 20 working days to respond to a FOIA request. And so FOIA officers are scrambling. Where do I get these records? They're asking me, where do I find these records? And so the records officers over there just chilling. They don't know how to assist a FOIA officer. They're just relaxing. So I realized, wow, these silos really cause problems. And the more, if you go over 20 working days in the United States, you can get sued. And so, right? And so there's litigation problems. And there's all these different problems that occur, and even privacy risks, because they don't know where the privacy documents are. And so I realized that these silos cause so many issues that the government doesn't realize. And so we break down these silos, allow them to collaborate and integrate and, share knowledge. Each process becomes streamlined. That's where I realized.
I love that. I love that. So previously, before you started in your job, you spent some time at Harvard Business School. Now, how did that shape your approach in translating the dry, complex policies into actionable system from senior leaders, stakeholders?
That's a great question. My time at Harvard Business School allowed me to broaden my knowledge, allowed me to stretch my mind, because oftentimes before I went to Harvard Business School, my mindset was like this, And so after going there, allowed me to take the ideas are in my head and put it into practice. It allowed me to think beyond the scope, think beyond the box, because I think what differentiates a leader from an average person, right? It's the fact that you can lead. It's the fact that you can not just think beyond the box, think beyond the scope. Don't just do what you're normally doing in your everyday job, but realize, let me broaden my knowledge. Let me go outside and see what's out there and bring it back to my field to enhance my field. And so we have to be innovative, right? We have to be transformative. And so that's something that Harvard School taught me, taking the knowledge that they have given me and put it into practice, put it into policy to transform my my discipline.
I love that. And I think it's so good the way you've described the sort of education. You've been given the education and you're very forward thinking and very innovative in yourself. One of the things that I find right now within our profession is our influence and our personal branding. So a lot of us are sort of still kind of holding back and not coming forward in the organization to say, like, I'm an information leader. Information is gold, as the things you've described, and influencing those and leading, whether it's a team or you've got to lead the organization through these innovations and these projects that you're describing, but also through your strategies and the things that you need to deliver. Did Harvard Business School give you any tips and techniques around influence and personal branding, which is the more softer skills that I feel that information leaders should have?
Oh my, that's a great question. And I agree with you. I think one of the things that before I go to Harvard Business School that I realized is leaders, they don't know everything. And that's okay. And so you have to convince them. You have to find out what is important to them. What is the most important thing to them? Zoom in on that. How can you help their job succeed? Because when someone doesn't know about you and what you do, it's like, let's be honest. I mean, they're just not going to care. How do you make them care, right? You make them care by saying, what I do is going to help you. That's the first thing you do. And so I started there. What Harvard Business School, going back to Harvard Business School, what that has allowed me to do is say, hey, again, think beyond the scope. How can you benefit the enterprise on a bigger scope? Don't just think, okay, how can I move FOIA needle? How can I move privacy needle? How can I move records management needle? Think beyond your field. Think enterprise-wide. How can I benefit the organization? How does what I do bring a influence or bring a benefit to the organization on a whole? That's how you're going to understand. That's how you're going to get to leaders, because they don't think about your field. They're not thinking about you and IG. They're not thinking about that. They're thinking about the whole organization. So go on their level. Think with them. Think alongside with them, and they'll pay attention to you, because at the end of the day, they have their mission. Your mission should be in alignment with their mission.
Yeah, agreed. And it's kind of those questions of what's keeping them up at night. And it's like, if you can understand those types of things, you can wrap a story around it and you can sell the benefits to them. And I think it's such a good point, because, and it's so underestimated, that people say this is the benefit to us and to me as an information leader and the organization, but actually it's the benefit to that person and certainly information asset owners. And how do you get that sort of benefit fed back through the organization? Now, I want to talk about ROI, so return of investment. So you've just talked about that. So in terms of integrating records management, FOIA and privacy, how does bringing these three silo departments together actually save an organization money?
Such a great question once again. Working in silos, it costs organizations a lot of money. I mean, first of all, let's start with three separate systems. Organizations spend money on privacy systems, FOIA systems, records management systems, and it's a lot of money, in my opinion, gets wasted because the bigger problem here doesn't get solved. They just keep working in silos and nothing gets solved. That's number one. Number two, their risk that they're not addressing. When you separate and silo these programs, for example, in FOIA, like I mentioned before, FOIA officers spend so many times trying to locate records. They have no idea where these records are. While a records officer over there, their job is to organize and manage these same records. That's their job. So if you're spending all this time tracking those records down, your 20 working days that you're allowed legally, right, to respond to requesters, it's dwindling and dwindling. That increased the cost of litigation, right, for the organization. You're losing money that way. Privacy breaches, your privacy officers do not know where these records are, these sensitive records are, these records with personal identifiable information are. And so if you don't know where these records are, the chances of breaches skyrocket. And so, combining these three entities together and allowing them to share data, share information, one, you're cutting down all these problems that you're having. You're allowing them to say, hey, let me zoom in on the main guy, which I believe is records management. Let's work with records management. They know everything. They have the records in the organization that we need. Talk to them. And each process is going to be streamlined. When you streamline each process, you're going to eventually cut costs because all the blind spots are not going to be missed anymore. They're going to be open. And so knowledge is going to be shared. And so that's how our leaders should look at it.
And there's also the element of time management in there. So how much time are they spending on these things? Because organizations are having to pay a salary. And from that salary, that's a factor cost that needs to go in as well. So how does information governance directly impact the trust of the public, customers, or citizens in the institution that they're actually in?
Yeah, well, if you think about it, let's just break it down for a little bit. FOIA, again, is access to government information. The public wants to know that they can trust their government, right? They want to know that their records are being delivered on time. They want to know that your records are being organized properly. Their information is being safeguarded. They want to know these things. And so if your organization is scattered, disorganized, dysfunctional, how are they going to trust you? So I think leaders should think like that. Information is everything. Information is gold. You can tell so much based on information. That's really what information is. So if they feel like they can't trust you because you're not protecting their information properly, you're not giving them transparency, which you're not giving them access to their information, and you're not even holding yourself accountable by making sure that your information is managed properly and organized properly, and they're gonna feel like they can't trust you. But when you combine all of these three fields that I was talking about, then the public will feel like they can trust you because they're like, wow, the government is organized, or wow, that organization is well organized. I can get my request like this. I know my personal information is protected. They feel safe. They feel like they can trust you. And if you're disorganized and dysfunctional, they won't feel like they can trust you. That's a human nature.
Yeah, agreed. So how has your background influenced your current role and approach to information management?
My background as in being a veteran or...
Yeah, being a veteran, the job that you do, yeah.
So that's a great question. So I started my career in FOIA and privacy. That's where I started as a FOIA and privacy analyst. And I'm so happy I did. So later on down the line, I took on records management. Wasn't sure what records management is. I had no idea what it is. But what I realized that stepping outside my comfort zone and learning something new, my mind was able to be open. And that's why I want to tell you guys right here, all IG professionals, do not be afraid to step outside the comfort zone. Don't just look into one little area and that's it, because you won't really understand the full scope of your job. So step outside, learn something new, learn FOIA, learn privacy, learn work subject active requests, whatever you need to learn something new and bring it back to your field to enhance your field. And so my foundation was FOIA and privacy for a long time. I decided to take on records management. Once I took on records management, I realized, oh my goodness, ding, 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 all the dots connect because records management is gold. It is the foundation of an organization. Everything goes through records management. If you don't organize your records properly, everything falls apart. And that's a really good point. Even one thing I want to say, even with AI right now, AI is a big thing that's going on right now, right? If your records are not organized properly in your organization, AI will fail because what does AI work off of if you think about it? It works off of records. It works off of the information you give it. And so if your information is chaotic and crazy, even AI is going to fail. So this is one example I'm showing. So broaden your knowledge, records is key. I'll always say records is key.
Nice. So let's talk a bit more about AI. So I'm glad you kind of brought it up because it's always a hot topic of conversation. So information is being generated at an exorbitant rate. How does your unified information governance model framework adapt to a world where records are now being created by machines?
That's a very great question. So the UIGM, the model, it can absolutely work with AI. Well, it was built to work with AI. So let's just imagine for 1 second, real quick. If you have a system, right, and within that system, you have a way to ensure that information is properly governed from creation all the way to disposition. Let's be clear. No privacy officer, records officer, all these disciplines, they cannot govern every single information. That's impossible, right? So this is an automated system. What this automated system does is it gets the information, it flows it, it keeps it from creation disposition, it keeps it going, right? And so what will happen is these officers, FOIA, privacy records officers, all these officers within the organization, what they will do is if there's an issue, like a privacy issue within a record or something like that, it will trigger a privacy officer review. Or if a record, for example, is past the disposition date or something like that, it will trigger a records officer review, right? Or risk. Within this automated phase of this AI system, it will trigger these individuals to take a look at this record. So they all work together, and in the system, they all see what's going on. They all see all the records from creation to disposition, the status, everything about it. So that's the beautiful thing about AI. AI is a tool. A lot of people are scared that AI is going to take their job. AI will never take your job because AI does not have that human capability that we do. It's just a tool to assist us. And especially in automation, amazing. Where records are just so vast, so big, AI can just scale everything through for you. Scale it through. And then when something is of a significance, or when the AI feel like, hey, this needs to be some attention, what the AI does is triggers the experts to come in to say, hey, okay, handle this, tackle this. And that's how I view the UIGM in the future, as a huge automated system that combines all the disciplines together and they all work together.
Yeah, and I think it's a really important point what you said about AI, because actually the benefits of it, as you articulated, so well explained, but AI doesn't influence. AI doesn't explain things to senior leaders. I mean, it does in documentation, but you need a person to present that. AI kind of doesn't lead organizations to manage their information effectively. And I think that is some of the things that people are missing. So it does make us more effective, but those are the key soft skills that I'm very, very passionate about, certainly in our industry, that we will still be there to do these things. And that's very much personal influence, innovation, and also our mindsets and personal branding as well.
Yeah.
So if listeners who are leaders wants to implement your model today, what does their organization look like 10 years from now compared to one stuck in the status quo? Now, it's a magic question. So tell me.
I'm excited. So right now, most organizations are, whether you're in private sector, whether you're government, whether you're in a private organization, they struggle with information governance. They struggle with just basically governing your information. Sometimes some private organizations, they hire different experts. They hire privacy experts to figure it out, or an IG expert, or even they have different experts. Right now, what in the future UIGM can offer is overview. It can offer a world where you have access to everything, where you can see it all. You don't have to work in fragmentations anymore. You don't have to work in silos anymore. You have one system where everything lives. All disciplines work together. They work together, they collaborate. From the moment information hits your organization, all of them, to the moment it's disposed of, everybody knows everything. You know everything. But sometimes you have to ask with different experts for everything. It's like, hey, they all can see in one system. They all collaborate. They all know exactly what's going on. So there's no blind spots. All your processes get streamlined. And then your public, your customers or the public, they are better understanding of your whole system, of how it runs in your system, because everybody is in the loop. When no one is working in silos, I guarantee you, everybody is in accordance. Everybody understands everything. Everything is streamlined. You have better reports. You can tell one report to the public, this is how we govern your information on a full scope. This is not how the privacy work. This is not how the FOIA work or whatever the areas are, or cybersecurity work. No, everybody knows what's going on. All threats are minimized. Everything works well in one loop, in one unified manner. That's why it's called Unified Information Governance Model, because you're unifying your information governance structure and everybody knows everything.
So for the listeners, what's the one key takeaway that you'd ask them to take away from this podcast today?
One thing I want to take away, if you don't learn anything else, broaden your mind, broaden your knowledge. That's what happened to me. Years ago, I was in FOIA and privacy, just that. I decided to take on records management. It's the best decision I could have ever made, because I broadened my knowledge and I was able to understand the full scope of my job. It wasn't just about privacy. It wasn't just about FOIA. It wasn't just that. There's a bigger picture here. And this is how we govern our information. And I dig deeper and deeper and realize all these fields connect. Cybersecurity connect. Where do you think these information live? They live in information systems, right? Who guards those information systems? A security expert. I'm telling you, I could go on if I had time, but they all intersect, they all connect, and you'll understand the bigger picture if you broaden your knowledge and go outside your field.
Amazing. Dr. Moya, you've been absolutely sensational. How can listeners reach out to you if they want to know more?
The number one way you can reach out to me is through linking. I'm very active on LinkedIn. I post very regularly, and you will thoroughly enjoy and you will learn something.
Thank you for listening to the Journals of the Information Entrepreneur with me, Jacqueline Stockwell. I hope you found this episode inspiring and helpful and have some takeaway tips that can be useful to you. If you liked this episode, please like, review and share it with your friends. Your support helps us reach more information leaders to stay inspired and listen to great content. Want to test out your strengths and weaknesses and measure it against our Empower framework? Please complete the scorecard. It's a great way to improve and evaluate your skills. You can find the scorecard at the end of the description of this podcast. Stay tuned for a new podcast every Thursday, and remember to be bold, be brave and be beautiful.